Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how I made this Mondstadt house from Genshin Impact. I've always been drawn to the variety of buildings in Genshin Impact. The way that this game makes use of the differences between the culture and the aesthetics of each region has always been a major draw for me, and I don't think there's ever been a dull moment for me while exploring to that. So naturally I decided to start with a home from the first region that was ever released, and the one that I think everyone has the most nostalgia for. Referencing photos and videos on my laptop, I start with the base. I draw the rough shape of the base of the house on a piece of foam core board. I then carefully cut it out, making sure not to cut off any of the bits that stick out. It's been a long time since I've mixed up some goop, but finally it's time for the return of it. Using my usual mixture of modelling paste, model dirt, and a little bit of water, I slather it onto the base, before gluing the foam base onto that base. Off camera, I painstakingly measured out and cut out the sides of the house from more foam core, and, once again referencing photos and videos on my laptop, I proceed to glue the house together. This specific house from Mondstadt is called the Country Home with Tall Attic, although I will admit that I'm using the Springvale version of the house as a reference, as opposed to the one that can be found in the teapot. With the walls in place, I cut out the 3 windows, and then lined the bottoms of those windows with bricks. I then proceed to place more bricks along the base of the house and up the walls, hiding all of the ugly seams. I attach a very ugly chimney to one side of the house. Admittedly, I would have spent a little bit more time on the chimney. I would have made it look a little less ugly, but it's too late now. The entire house then gets a layer of watered down modelling paste, which is then stippled with a sponge to help it look more like stone. To make the glass for the windows, I glue a sheet of plastic behind them. I then cover all of them with masking tape, because I know better than to trust my own painting abilities. Then, using strips of cardboard, I proceed to add all of the wood details. Once that was all done, I then add the roof, which I made out of more cardboard.
Continuity error alert.
Surprise, surprise, the roof shingles were made out of more cardboard, which was cut into strips and then cut into squares. These shingles were then all painstakingly glued onto the roof. This wasn't quite as bad as my Ravensthorpe build, but it was still bad. It still took me a couple of hours to do this. To finish off the build, I glued a thin paddle pop stick to the top, hiding the roof's ugly seam. The entire model then gets primed white. The walls of the house get a very light grey, and then a dark grey stippled on to help age it a little bit. The roof gets a desaturated purple, although looking back on it I do wish I'd mixed a little bit of blue in there. It would have been more accurate to the game, but you know. The roof then gets a light purple dry brush. All of the wood accents then get a dark brown, followed by a lighter brown in the centre. This helps to age the wood a little bit. The dirt gets a yellowy brown, and the brick details get a green-grey, with some choice bricks being an ugly brown colour. Off camera, I made 3 doors and the awning for the front of the house out of cardboard, and these were all painted to match before being glued to the house. The entire house then receives a very watered down brown wash. Then, after removing the tape from the windows, I proceed to dry brush the entire model with lighter versions of whatever colours we used before. I chose to paint the panels onto the windows with brown paint, just because I knew it would be easier to do that than to glue little bits of wood in place. Time for the finishing touches. I stipple on a thin layer of PVA glue and then sprinkle on some fake grass on top. Once dry, the excess gets shaken off and then returned to the container it came from. I then glue down 3 little stones in front of the front door. I made these off camera out of bits of foam, painted grey and then dry brushed a lighter grey. I then paint on the silver doorknob onto each of the doors. I then proceed to place foam flocking on various parts of the model. I really went to town on this model, probably a little bit too much in some places. But oh well, it's done now. The very last touch was to add these Philanemo? Whatever. These mushrooms I made out of ivory polymer clay, and then stained brown in some spots. These get glued onto the model in 3 different places. And with that, it's finished. Thank you for watching. I had a lot of fun with this project, although I'm not sure if it will become a series on my channel yet. I'm certainly debating the idea, but it might have to wait until I'm a little further into my Elder Scrolls Daedric Plains series before I start. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, have a good one.